that there's movement of people to different states that they believe represent them better. And there's a polarity developing and they're going to different states. And that there's not obeying the central government. So now it becomes a power game. I don't think that to be I'm in the business, I need to be objective.
Right.
Because accuracy is my thing. I have to be as accurate as possible. I'm not saying that's accurate, but I'm saying when I look at that, I don't think my assuming that's a 1 in 3. I think it's actually probably higher than that there will be that kind of a situation. And I think it's better than higher than a 1 in 3. I think maybe significantly higher, that you get into the same conflict in the power. For example, internationally. For example,
countries, yeah.
Does Russia or the West win the war in the Ukraine? I'll define Putin winning the war as 3 things. He gains control of the eastern part of the Ukraine. Russia's economy is not devastated by sanctions, and he remains in power.
Wow.
And let's say, for example, he can attend and Russia attends the next G20 meeting. Okay, so
that's him winning the war.
That's him winning the war, because in the beginning of that, it was worth his cost. I mean, he wants more than that. He wants a neutral Ukraine or an aligned Ukraine, but he's not going to probably get that. But that's the minimum. Now that's him winning the war. That's also kind of the West losing the war. Now, but if he loses the war, if he loses that, he will probably escalate. Okay, because the war is now being played as a on the ground, armies to armies, and with sanctions. But he has other weapons. And rather than go down, he will probably escalate. Okay, that's a game of chicken.
Right.
It's a very dangerous game.
Yeah.
Okay. And there are other issues globally. For example, you're seeing these alliances work out, and you're seeing the United States, for various reasons, sort of pull out of the Middle East, and you're seeing China more move in. And so these tensions exist, and power exists. There are more countries that have nuclear weapons now than there were. And, there's even talk of joint military operations between China and Iran. And so you see these sides begin to align. So if I say that there's a 1 in 3 chance of some kind of a military confrontation, that scares the hell out of us, or that is extremely, I don't think that sounds too high. I think it's larger than that. So that means I think we're headed for some risky times, because any one of those things is really is not normal. Any one of those things is not what we're used to. It's pretty bad. And but again, if everybody worries, they don't have to worry. If both sides think about what that's like and say, I can't, we must come together and make sure that does not happen.
Yeah, that would take us being rational human beings, right? And having some inner wisdom and a consciousness.
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm trying to pass along. I passed along the book, which was a study for my own benefit, but I also did an animation, and to try to pass it along, so to help people understand this. The animation, I put it out a month ago. It's got 11 million views. It's very digestible.
Yeah.
So on YouTube,
we'll have that.
If people,
we'll have that linked up in our description on audio and on YouTube for people to watch. It's really powerful. I'm curious. You've seen a lot in the last 4 or 5 decades of being in this industry and this business and in the financial world. With everything that's happened over the last couple of years, not just pandemic, but stock markets going up and down, wars, inner conflict of countries, all these different things, cryptocurrencies coming in, the decentralization of money, all these different things. What do you even think is going to happen in the next 10 years with the whole 2030 agenda being talked about? What do you see happening over the next 10 years?
I should say that one thing when I did that, I discovered the three forces that I mentioned. I discovered a fourth and a fifth that are very important and big. One is that, interestingly, acts of nature in the form of droughts, floods, and pandemics have had a bigger impact than the things I've been talking about, in terms of cost more lives or toppled more civilizations, those acts of nature. So I think that's something probably that we have to be concerned about. But number 5, over long periods of time, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, the most powerful force is man's ability to adapt and invent. Tremendous capability of adapting and inventing. So you'll see charts in the book and you'll see here's a Great Depression and here's a war. And as you see those things, they look like blips on the chart of life expectancy, per capita income, and so on. And so there's a tremendous capacity for dealing with all the other stuff if man can adapt to it well. And inventiveness during this period of time should be kind of, I think, really great, because what we're using more and more is types of technology, artificial intelligence and so on. The ability to think and collect data and use the computer to help us with that is a very, very powerful force. Now, like any force, it's also a risky force because it can be used for bad as well as for good. But I think the world will evolve. We will have these cycles in the world. So that's what you see. You see these cycles, and then you see evolution through those cycles and adaptation. And so I expect that. But I would say there's the probabilities I gave you before, that concern me. So, a lot will be unknown, but we have a lot of potential and a lot of things to worry about.
You've created so much wealth for yourself. You've been building so much, and you're still very busy. It's not like you're done by any means. You're still growing. But if you were your late 30s, early 40s at this time, and you had been building a business and building a team and trying to set yourself up to be healthy in all the different areas of your life, how would you be thinking if you're in your 30s, early 40s about the next few moves that you should make as an individual?
Oh, it's very interesting because there's a life cycle, but the upshot of the life cycle is in your early years, you're quite often your happiest years, and the happiest years extend just until you a bit past you getting out of school. So there's 3 phases. The first phase is you're dependent on others. You're trying to learn and be successful. And then you come out of school and you're idealistic. You can do everything. You don't have much obligations. You take on the job and so on. That's a happy period. Then you have a work-life balance challenge. And life is harder than you expect it to be, typically. And that notion that I'm going to be just easily, terrifically successful is difficult. And so if you take the most least happy period of life by measures of happiness across most societies, it comes in really something like the 45 to 50 period. That's because you have the work-life balance. Maybe the relationship that you had with your spouse is not, or whatever your significant other isn't as wonderful as you'd imagined it would be. That's when the divorce rates are higher. You're overstretched. You're having to take care of your kids, and you're having to take care of your parents. It's a tough phase. That's a tough phase. And then what happens is, as you pass that, it's very interesting. From 55 until the person approaches whatever that is that's going to kill them is the happiest period of time. Even happier than the earlier period of time by records, because you become free. You're not so hung up on, am I the best accomplishment? I'm okay. You're so sufficient. You have the choices, whatever, and you don't have to take care of your parents. You don't have to take care of your kids. The kids are grown up, and your parents have passed away, and so on. So that's the pattern. And so when you think about this in terms of, let's say, your question, okay, what's the advice? My first bit of advice is meditate. I found that meditation, I do transcendental meditation. I find that that gives me a calmness and an equanimity to deal with my realities that are coming at me. Okay? Life is just a matter of choices. And I found, generally speaking, when things are at odds and there's this conflict, if you step back with a clear head, you can